Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Subway's tuna, but it is an objectively popular menu item, which is why in January of 2021, it became a whole ordeal for Subway when they were sued for using allegedly fake tuna in their sandwiches. 10 months later, this whole situation is essentially played out. So this brings me to the purpose of this report, which is to explain how Subway successfully defended themselves against these claims. So how did this all begin? Well, this brings me to my first point, the lawsuit. In January of 2021, the USA Today reported that an individual filed a class action lawsuit against Subway for using fake tuna in their sandwiches. The New York Times caught wind of this lawsuit and decided to conduct an independent investigation of their own. So this brings me to my second point, the New York Times investigation. As mentioned, the New York Times decided to investigate this lawsuit and the claims behind the fake tuna, and they partnered with an anonymous lab and tested a sample of Subway's tuna. The result was that this tuna contained no tuna DNA. However, in the eventual report that the New York Times would publish in June of 2021, and the lab themselves, they acknowledged that this is inconclusive. Well, why is this inconclusive? It's because the tuna sample was cooked and it is also heavily processed for preservation purposes. So this means that even if it is objectively real tuna, it is unlikely that it would have contained tuna DNA anyways. So, as I mentioned, in June, the New York Times published this report. The New York Times is a huge outlet, so this became a trending topic on Twitter. People were dunking on Subway, and it was very bad for them. Obviously, Subway had to respond. And this brings me to my third point, the response by Subway. In the Business Insider news outlet, a Subway representative stated that the New York Times published misleading information, and they emphasized that the New York Times and the lab themselves stated that this is inconclusive and that even real tuna would not contain tuna DNA if it was that heavily processed and cooked. And they stated that they should have emphasized this inconclusivity even more. So after this statement, it essentially became a forgotten topic. People on Twitter they forgot about it. It became just one of those topics that people talk about for a day and then they forget about it. In conclusion, as mentioned earlier, Subway was sued for using fake tuna, but after a thorough and professional investigation and a simple but effective statement from Subway representatives, it's apparent that they have successfully defended themselves against the claims. Subway did not do too much, they didn't do too little, they did just enough to defend themselves against the claims, and then they're still popular as ever. Tuna is still a popular menu item, and they are doing well for business. So what is the purpose of this? Why does this matter? Well, Subway is a good example of a company, a big company at that does act well in a time of crisis, a PR crisis. And some companies don't really do that, so they can learn from Subway when it comes to dealing with such big catastrophes.